Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cinema A to B. Alec, today we're going to talk shop on Tron Legacy, the 2010 sequel to Tron, starring Jeff Bridges, Garrett Hedlund, and Olivia Wilde. And it was directed by a guy that's like one of the top directors in Hollywood now, Joseph Kosinski. And we'll get into that. But why don't you start us off on your thoughts on Tron Legacy?
So I'm going to be honest. I am not a huge fan of the 1982, I believe it is, Tron, the first one. Mm-hmm. I didn't grow up with it. My parents were not big sci-fi fans. I was a big sci-fi person, but was pretty much stuck on Star Wars, watched those on repeat. But with the original Tron, it looked weird kind of a thing. And so I was like, I wasn't really interested into it. I thought it was kind of not silly, but just never really watched it all the way through. So when I went back and watched it, got to enjoy it at least, but still don't love it. It's not my favorite, which is fine. However, my goodness, I adore this film. It is amazing. Hands down, after I think we talked about it because we watched it together, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. We all went to the theater. Afterwards, I think we were saying, and I completely and utterly agree, this is what I got from this is what the Star Wars prequel should be. Especially that battle sequence in the bar or whatever. I'm like, that's what the Star Wars prequel should have been. This, the look, the feel, the emotion, this hit all those notes that were missed. I walked into it with little to no expectation. Just oh, it's cool, whatever. I'll go see it, and was absolutely blown away. The acting was superb. The storyline was fantastic. The dialogue was great. The music. This is probably one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. I listen to this soundtrack on a regular basis. And by regular, I mean at least once a week, I'm just putting on Tron Legacy soundtrack and going from start to finish, and usually putting on repeat and just let it go. Because Daft Punk, I love Daft Punk anyways, but Daft Punk just nailed it. Just absolutely nailed this. The feel of it just comes through, and the music is such a big part about this film. I don't know why this is not higher up in films that I love. I mean, it's not a heavy film. It's not a super deep film. It's just a film done really, really well.
Yeah, you nailed it. It is one of the best theatrical experiences I've ever had. Basically, Alec and I were really fortunate. This was one of the films we saw when we were working and living in Los Angeles. And so we both saw this at what I consider one of, if not the best, IMAX cinema in the world, which is the Universal AMC City Walk. Mm-hmm. They're in Universal Studios, basically. They're in Studio City, because it's technically the property is owned by Universal Studios, and then it's operated under a lease agreement by AMC. And we saw this in what I consider the definitive format, which was 3D, but it was 70 millimeter IMAX 3D. Mm-hmm. And I've never seen anything like it before or since.
No.
And I watched it very recently, just a couple nights ago. I didn't watch it in 3D. I'm debating getting a 3D Blu-ray copy because my projector will do 3D.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's got that capability built into it. I've never taken advantage of it. So I'm kind of I might shell out and find, I think I can get a copy of it for $20 or $30 on Amazon, but it is enthralling from start to finish. And on a repeat, it held up really well. In fact, I kind of forgot a lot of stuff in the third act. I remembered the first half of the movie really vividly. And then I kind of reached a point where it's which I usually remember a movie frontwards, backwards, sideways. And so it was yeah, I'm getting older. And then, and then it was okay, yeah, this is kind of nice to come back into it a little bit in a fresh perspective. I'm with you. I don't understand. It's a 6.8 on IMDb. I don't get it.
It is a 6.8?
It's a 6.8.
That is, no. No, absolutely not.
354,000 votes. I don't understand.
No.
And you and I are not the only people that really like this movie. A shout out to my coworker, Johnny, who just redesigned our logo, by the way. Very nice job.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you.
Yeah, he loves this movie too for all the reasons we do. The aesthetic, and then the soundtrack by Daft Punk. This whole thing is a vibe. Mm-hmm. A techno future vibe. But it's not shallow. because the whole thing is anchored by this lost relationship between a father and his son. And Bridges plays very emotionally downtrodden Flynn.
Someone who's been exiled for so long.
He's been stuck. He's been stuck on the grid for, I love that track.
Yeah.
That opening track.
The grid.
He's been stuck in there for, they pretty much play it like he's been stuck there since I think 89, I think is the opening. By the way, that's like my big knock on the movie. This is my only complaint is that it's not even de-aging. They didn't even de-age Bridges. They just put this terrible CGI, supposed to be younger version of his face on some other actor in the beginning. And it's terrible.
It is.
But by the same token, it works really well as Clue.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it back and I was like, this actually works perfectly for Clue. This kind of uncanny valley thing that's going on where he's kind of creeps me out.
Mm-hmm.
That really is almost an accidental good choice for Clue. I think they would have made Clue look as realistic, like a clone of him, as they could. I don't think it was supposed to look this bad, but for that purpose, it looks great because Clue is a creepy character anyway.
Yeah.
This thing is visually unlike anything
stunning.
Made before it or after.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know Dune, we're recording this, Dune Part 2 just came out, and Dune Part 2 is visually stunning. It doesn't look like Tron Legacy. I mean, and it can't, and nothing can. And it is such a cool world to just sit there and look at the way they've pieced this together.
And all of the suits, all of the vehicles, like how things were destroyed, what it turned into. Like there's a lot of thought process in it as well that just, you could tell that they got some people to just go. I mean, there's a reason why the actual practical filming was only 65 days of shooting or something like that. And the post-production was 68 weeks or something. Like it was ridiculous because most of this film kind of comes up as post-production of like taking what they've shot and then adding all those different layers to it. I don't know. It's good. I mean, again, it's not like it's not like there's bad acting in it. It's not like the dialogue is terrible. This should not be a 6.8. This
no, and it sadly didn't do well. The box office numbers were not what they needed to be because it did have a large budget. I don't remember exactly what it was.
It's about 170 million
in 2010.
In 2010, yeah.
Ooh.
I mean, I'm surprised that the Kosinski made it to.
So yeah, 170 million estimated budget, grossed 400 million worldwide.
Not terrible. But not great. I mean, you barely doubled your money over. I mean, it basically was a break. It was a break. Yeah.
At the box office, it was a break even.
Yeah.
I don't know. Nobody will ever release the DVD and Blu-ray sales. I guarantee you Disney was made whole on the back end.
Yeah.
And then obviously they're not done with the property because they're going to do this Tron Ares in 2025 with Jared Leto, but which I have, we can get into that because I have some theories on what they're going to do. Maybe near the end of the episode, we can delve into that. But no, you're right. The acting is solid throughout. And this was one of the movies that I thought that Garrett Hedlund was going to really take off. And I think the struggles of the box office kind of hurt that a little bit. But then by the same token, he's been the kind of guy that I think this kind of left a bad taste in his mouth because he's taken on much more traditional roles in lower budget, more traditional movies after this. Like he's not really wanted to be the headliner. And I don't know that he was ever going to be necessarily an A-lister, but he seemed like for a time there, he seemed like he was poised. I mean, he had a pretty sizable role in Friday Night Lights, the film, and then did this and was like, I was kind of surprised to not see him in more big budget projects,
and he's good too.
He's really good.
In all that. I mean, he was in Inside Llewellyn Davis. He was on Unbroken. Like he's got acting chops. Like he can do this. Like, and obviously, I mean, you can put a film on his shoulders and he's gonna be able to bring it home. Like you talked about this, like a father, a son, finding his father or coming back to that. Like they play it really well because it's not like he runs into the arm of his dad and he's happy. Like there's anger there that they have to work through. There's frustration. There's like, you left me. Like he played that excellently. Like there was a lot of good emotional beats that he hit and that he hit well.
I remember seeing the first trailer. It's the exchange with Garrett and then Bruce Boxleitner that plays Alan Bradley, who's in the original and also played Tron. But I remember there's an exchange with him and he's like, you act like I'm going to go over there to his office and he's just going to be sitting there saying, "Oh, sorry, kid, lost track of time." And the way he delivered that, I remember in the moment in the trailer going, yeah, this guy's going to be just fine in this movie, kind of carrying it, because he largely does. I mean, he doesn't find bridges until at least the midway point, maybe even a little further than that, which was a nice choice because they give you a chance to like kind of enjoy and explore this world at the same time he is through his eyes, basically, before they have that moment where Cora brings him back to where Flynn is. But, in some ways, this movie is actually a reboot of the original because you get a lot of the same sequences just done with modern VFX work, like the light cycles and the discs. And it's worth it because the visual effects are so much further beyond than obviously what they were able to accomplish in 82. But I like that aspect of the movie. Like, I like that the 82 VFX look like crap because in the context of that movie being set in 1982, that's fine.
Right. Yeah.
It's really weird. Like this is one of the rare instances where the sequel looking this much better doesn't really take anything away from the original film at all. Like Star Wars struggles with this, right? With the way the original trilogy looks versus then the effects work for this, the prequel trilogy and then the sequel trilogy that we will never talk about. But
what?
This doesn't suffer any of that.
No.
I think I've gone back and watched Tron a couple more times. I think I have that on DVD and it's interesting to watch. I mainly just feel bad for all the people that had to frame by frame paint in on the suits, all the rotoscoping. Whereas in this, it's they're just lit up with LED.
And that was actually on their suits too.
Yeah.
So like that's not post-production lights on their suits.
No,
they saved
the VFX crew a lot of headaches doing it that way.
There's also a great moment. I really enjoy Michael Sheen and his portrayal of Castor or Zeus or what do you want to call him is amazing. Like he just pulls it off so stinking well, like that oily kind of, I don't know, like it makes me laugh, makes me happy every time I see him.
He's been accused of overacting in the past before, like is it one of the Underworld movies?
Oh, where's one of the Lycans or whatever? Yeah. Oh no. Or what?
He's like a vampire, I think.
Well, but Twilight, he's one too.
He's known as like it's basically meme worthy for like just dreadful overacting. But and he doesn't always do that because go watch him in like something like Frost Nixon, and he's really good. Like
he's amazing.
Yeah, guy knows how to act. But you're right, he's perfect. His flamboyance, like the way he moves. And then I love that Daft Punk is actually in the movie in the club. And he's like, it's great. But
that whole club scene is my absolute favorite moment in the film. Like there's a lot of great moments, but I looked at that and was like, this is what the prequel should have been like, something like this kind of feeling, that whole battle sequence, like, with lightsabers or whatever you want to call it, with, the discs and things of that. I was like, this is absolutely stunning, beautiful, amazing, but a well put together story. Like, and I know they're two very, very different things. And there's a lot of political intrigue in the prequels that doesn't really show up obviously in Tron, but I think there was a way that you could have kind of married the two, of gotten a little bit better dialogue in the prequels that like the kind that you can get in Tron Legacy. And just, I don't know. I feel like this is like a part of Star Wars, but not really in a lot of ways. I'm just like to pretend.
I don't know. Obviously, I don't know if I agree with you on that, but I'll let you have it. I'm glad that Kosinski was able to get additional opportunities after this, even though it wasn't the box office success they were hoping, and why it's rated so low, I'll never understand. But the guy's got chops, and it seemed like I remember reading articles when this was in production and then in post-production that he was kind of blowing people's minds with the vision that he was casting during production of like what he wanted, that everybody was just like, wow, this is going to be something else. And I just don't think Tron had a built-in audience. Like
not the same.
The 82 movie would be, Blade Runner suffers the same problem. It's a cult classic, but just because something's a cult classic doesn't mean that the audience is particularly large. And I think that's a mistake that sometimes studios kind of fall into, is like, oh yeah, it's built this huge cult following, these really passionate fans over ensuing decades. But how many of those people are really there? And this kind of proved that it did okay, but there wasn't this built-in Tron fan base. Like it's not Star Wars.
No, it's definitely not.
It's not Star Wars or Star Trek. It's not that kind of franchise. Like it's kind of over here. Like it's kind of niche in that way. But I'm glad we got a sequel. I mean, I was very intrigued when they, this movie's 14 years old, and I was super intrigued when they dropped those first trailers. I was like,
yep.
Oh, my dad had turned me on to Tron, like most movies. And I grew up watching it. I always thought it was kind of interesting. I mean, heck, the arcade I built, is the artwork on it is
it's Tron. Yeah.
It's Tron, not because I hate the game, by the way. And people are like, why did you? Because of the movie. Like I love the movies, and I love that aesthetic. We'll see with Tron Ares. I mean, Ares is like a god of war kind of thing. And I think Leto's going to be the baddie. I think he's the big bad. I think he's Ares. And so they're basically they're gonna go through with a plot point effectively of what Clue is trying to do, which was get out off the grid with an army and
see what that
mess
looks like
with Earth. So the big question is, will Tron Ares acknowledge Tron Legacy at all? Are they going in like the reboot or anthology kind of direction with it? And nobody really knows, because it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that Hedlund and or Olivia Wilde are actually in the movie, like in the middle of the movie or near the end. And ta-da, it actually is a true sequel.
Well, and that draws a point. I think one of the things that make it interesting is that it happens all in, on the grid or whatever. When they come to Earth, that drastically changes the feeling of the movie. It's like, I talk a lot about this, like with the Hunger Games series, like it's really interesting in the first two movies for me, when they're actually in the Hunger Games. Like that's a cool premise. But the moment you take the Hunger Games away and in movies 3 and 4 or whatever, it becomes less interesting, because then it becomes it's a typical, dystopian future, fighting of, between the rebels and the whoever's in power kind of a thing. And it's kind of, not that it's bad, just not as interesting. Like take the interesting part away. And if you remove them from the grid, for me, that's the interesting part. It'd have to be compelling, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I feel like this could be a mistake that happens and make it less of an interesting film. But
I think we
don't know anything.
It's going to suffer the same challenges as like a Barbie sequel would.
Mm-hmm. Because wrapped it up.
You've wrapped it up, and you're going to change worlds. One world is much more interesting and cool to look at than the other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was the brilliance of Tron Legacy, is that they had Kevin Flynn go into the grid. So you had a whole nother movie in the grid. Like the last 60 seconds were, back in the real world. But I don't really had, I didn't have any desire to see a movie about Cora like existing. I mean, I don't need that. So, no. I mean, it's cool to think about. What was she called? Like an ISO?
Yeah.
ISO. That's maybe some of that's intriguing of like, well, what is she once she's converted from digital to the other, the real world? Is she human? Is she not quite human? Does she have special abilities? Like that's kind of interesting, but I don't know that you can make a whole movie about that. And so if they're going to do Ares right, they're going to have to do a way where like the gateway's open and people are like phasing in and out of the grid and the real world. And so the things like, because you mentioned the Matrix, right? Like the Matrix suffers the same problem. So like the real world sucks and the Matrix was cool. And that's the challenge when you create worlds that are this cool looking, the audience just wants to stay there.
Yeah. I don't want to go.
They don't want to leave. I mean,
I just want to see more things that happen in this world.
Yeah.
So I want all the action and all the stuff to happen there.
I do love when in Legacy, when programs get destroyed, that they kind of break down into like almost like glass. I don't know. I'm wondering, was that digital or did they actually like drop physical stuff on set and then merge the two?
That one I don't actually know.
It looks like it's practical, but I can't really tell when they're on like aspects of a physical set and then it's blended with digital. Like I can't tell where that dividing line is. Even 14 years removed, I can't tell.
And that's one of the beauty of being in the grid, is because so much of it is, it is so digital anyways, that it is hard to tell that difference. And I mean, and I'm sure they did decent amount of practical effects with it. I mean, obviously they did the lights on the suits. So it blends so well. They did such a great job of that. And, that's why staying in the grid is far more interesting, because we can do these kind of fun things where it's not as easy to tell what's digital and what's not.
The film, frankly, will age better because it's supposed to be 2010 with 2010 effects work. It's the same as the 82, like I was talking about. Like it doesn't matter if the effects look old, in 20 or 30 years. That's what computers were capable of generating. So it's sort of built-in longevity, I guess, to a certain extent. I mean, I know folks that still pop in the original Tron. I mean, it's mostly folks that grew up playing, Pong, but they, I'm not a fan of the original Tron game. It's like, it is a beautiful cabinet. It's one of the coolest looking gaming cabinets. And I love that the entrance to Flynn's like super secret computer office was behind the Tron arcade. That was a nice touch.
They do a lot of that where there's like these little sort of like, dialogue pieces that are pulled directly from the 82 Tron. And, again, we talk about it on this podcast all the time. They are subtle fan service where it is, if you don't know about it, it doesn't detract from the story. And if you know about it, it doesn't really pull you out. You're just kind of like, that's awesome. That's really awesome. It's one of those things. Again, I can't say it enough. If you're going to do fan service, make it very subtle. Don't make it these big things that people are going to go, if they don't know it, why is this happening this way? It just doesn't work.
Who's the guy they have play the son of like the bad guy from the first Tron? Is it Cillian Murphy? Yeah, he's uncredited though. He plays Edward Dillinger, and Dillinger is like the corporate executive. So yeah, I figured, I was like, I just watched this the other day. I thought it was Cillian. Yeah, but he's uncredited. But yeah, he plays Edward Dillinger, the son of the Dillinger who played both a corporate executive and then the evil program that was working for Master Control in the original. And I have to think that they were planting that seed in hopes of doing a third film where the human villain at least would be played by Cillian Murphy. Otherwise, you don't cast him, because this is 5 years after Batman Begins. So like he'd been in he's been in plenty of stuff, as he's obviously not what he is now.
No.
But you could tell they were planting those seeds for some sort of third film. And I'm sure Cillian was going to play the villain, especially if the movie, a lot of it was going to take place in the real world. That would have made perfect sense. That he's still somewhere, he's on staff and causing problems. So
yeah, finds how to get into the grid or something along those lines.
Yeah. I have to think that Tom Cruise really liked Tron Legacy, because 3 years later he has Kosinski direct Oblivion,
which is another big budget film that didn't do great at the box office.
Oh, it's a good movie though.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a good film. That's a good film.
Yeah.
And then Oblivion. Then he didn't really do anything after that. Like he did only The Brave, and then in 2017, so it was like a 4-year gap. He did some commercial. He was a commercial director. And then he did obviously Top Gun Maverick,
which saved cinema,
according to Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
He may have he's gotten production. I'm excited now. He's got some sort of Formula One racing movie in production, untitled.
Interesting. Very cool.
With Brad Pitt.
Fun little thing that I just realized that, so obviously he has Daft Punk do the soundtrack to Tron Legacy.
Yep.
He had the band M83 do the soundtrack for Oblivion.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I love M83. Yeah.
And I love the soundtrack for Oblivion as well. Like it's a great job. So I'm assuming it's him, but since he has some, or whoever, if the producers are the same people for each one, has some kind of idea of being able to pick these bands who feels they can do a great job scoring a film.
It's because he was a commercial director.
Ooh, that probably what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. He did, because he did a video for Gears of War Mad World back in 2006. You know, obviously I'm in more of a regional advertising space, but I know how those circles work. And so the commercial director, music video director, video game, those circles are kind of more intertwined than feature film and TV. Because like in between Oblivion and like Only the Brave, he does like a commercial for Nissan, and then Gatorade. He does a video, like corporate, like big videos. They're not even like commercials, they're like big corporate, high budget stuff. And so, and you tend to you don't have somebody score music for those.
Yeah.
Like you license like big artists.
Yeah.
So it totally makes sense why he would get Daft Punk, and then and obviously he listens to some of the finest electronic music that there is. So, and then obviously Top Gun Maverick, that doesn't make sense to use that kind of
no, but
that kind of music, but
I'm just thinking back to back, like, and not only like is he using bands, but they're doing excellent work too. Like they're really doing the scores really, really well.
I kind of feel bad for whoever is going to score Tron Ares. Yeah, you guys go ahead and top Daft Punk.
Oh my goodness.
Or even match them. Like, go ahead.
Yeah. Nope. Not going to happen.
No.
Not going to happen.
My pick to score Tron Ares though would be Odessa. That would be the electronic duo that I think would have the chops to score something like Tron Ares. I think they're that good, but it would be different. It wouldn't sound like Daft Punk, but I don't know. I don't know how Tron Ares is going to do. And then frankly, Jared Leto does not have a great reputation right now. Like, I mean, and he's not frankly even that bankable unless it's Morbin time.
It's Morbin time.
Now I'll watch this if he goes in and says it's Tron in time.
No, don't do it, please.
Especially in the trailer, if it ends with it's Tron in time.
It's Tron. No, just stop. And we didn't really talk about Olivia Wilde does an amazing job in her role as Cora.
Yeah, she does.
And I wouldn't say this jump started. I mean, she had been doing a bunch of stuff before, but this is, I think, one of the bigger things that she was in with like the largest part which then allowed her to go on and start doing even bigger things or larger roles, and ones where she didn't have to be put into futuristic makeup.
Her character even has a nice evolution. I don't know, having a better understanding of like the relationship between Flynn and his son.
Mm-hmm.
Although Flynn very much treats her like a daughter he never had.
That protection of the ISO, of how important it is.
By the way, she's done a little bit of voice work for like Tron Evolution video game, and then there was like an episode of Tron Uprising, which was a short-lived TV series. She did an episode of that, so like she's kind of, I don't know if she was under contract for a certain amount of time. I could understand maybe not bringing Garrett Hedlund back, but I would think Cora's got to make an appearance in Tron Ares.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if Ares is supposed to be this destructive force in the world and there's nobody there to stop him, who's going to stop him? The ISO that's like, I don't know. I feel like this is already a done deal. I'm going to be laughing really hard if all my predictions come true. And I'm just gonna be like, really? You guys couldn't come up with anything better than what Ben lamely threw together on the podcast? I don't have much faith.
Like, they're gonna be like, did you break into our offices? How do you know this thing?
Oh yeah, there'll probably be a cease and desist of like,
yeah,
I don't know how you got a hold of early drafts of the script, but you need to stop.
Yeah, you need to stop. Get out of it. Well, any last thoughts on Tron?
No, I mean,
Legacy?
I just, like we usually say when we like a movie, we just encourage people to watch it that haven't seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a while and you want to come back to it. This is one that I think is fun to have in rotation. Mm-hmm. At least once a year. Yeah.
Enjoy what's going on. This one, so fun fact, this is a special movie for Laura and I. So after we got married, we went on our honeymoon. This was we got back to like the hotel, throw something on before we went to bed or something. This movie was like playing back to back on like the HBO channels on the TV. And so like pretty much was like, we went to Napa for our honeymoon. It was like, oh, day of wine, day of good food, come back. We're about to go to sleep. Go do it again. You know what? Let's watch a little Tron Legacy. And it just be on, like, no matter what time of day, it was like, wake up. Oh, it's just on repeat. Like they must have just like gotten it or something like that. So like, this is our honeymoon movie. And so it's a little special place in my heart that I love this movie.
Yeah. It's tremendous.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It's great. And
I can't really call it underrated because the people that like it know like how good it is. I guess I don't understand that why there's not a broader appreciation for it. Cause it doesn't, it's a very accessible movie. Like it doesn't require, like the plot's really easy to understand. It's not hard to follow. The action sequences are really great. Checks all the boxes for what should have been a very successful blockbuster.
Yeah.
And just couldn't find the audience. Yeah. It just couldn't.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us today. These come out every Monday, both audio only and the YouTube channel. So, we've been doing this a little bit over a year now. So if you haven't listened, go get our backlog and we'll hope to see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.